I'd like to call to order the Plan Commission meeting for June 2nd, 2026 at 6 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Attendance roll call.
Commissioner Groff. Here. Commissioner Kubaki is absent. Alderman Bryce.
Here.
Commissioner Cieslak. Here. Commissioner Buckmaster is absent. Commissioner Bartlett is not here, but he is on his way. Mayor Petfalski.
Here.
Planner Tresbiatowski.
Here.
We have a quorum. Statement of public notice.
The agenda was posted and distributed to all news media requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws on Friday, May 29th.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2026 and May 5th, 2026 Plan Commission meetings.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Public hearing. Public hearing for the conditional use grant in accordance with the Muskego zoning ordinance for the purpose of allowing a residential unit within a commercial building for the allowance of boat rentals and or sightseeing cruises, along with an amendment to the existing CUG number 13, to be allowed the continued allowance of restaurant/bar event space within a new structure. I know there's some people that want to talk about other agenda items, but this part is just for the Bass Bay part that Adam will explain right now.
Yeah, so I'll kind of just give a quick overview now, and we'll talk about it more when we get to that agenda item. Long and short of it, though, Bass Bay Brew House, this is the start of their approval to rebuild a building on their site. As was noted, as the mayor stated, some of the uses they're proposing, such as an apartment within the building, which existed previously, kayak rentals, which has existed previously, pontoon rides, which have existed previously, as well as the bar restaurant use, are all being proposed back on the site. The building will look a little bit different. The new proposal is a one-story structure, just under 13,000 square feet in size. There's a whole slew of improvements between the building, between parking lot improvements, more parking. We'll kind of talk about more of the details when we get to that item, but that's kind of a general overview of what the conditional use grant public hearing is for.
All right, thank you. Anyone that wants to be heard on this item, please step forward, give your name and address, and speak your piece. Going once, twice.
Perry Picord.
I'm sorry, can you say your name and address?
Perry,
Okay,
P-E-R-R-Y, Picord, P-I-C-O-R-D.
okay,
South 79, West 15820 Audemars Drive.
thank you.
They're right in front of the Audemars. I was expecting like them to give say what's going on with the restaurant first, but
So Adam explained what the public hearing is
Okay,
for, and then
I
when
got it.
those items come up on the agenda, we'll have a discussion with the plan
Okay.
and those actual.
well, here's my main concerns is, because I live, you pull out of Bass's Bay, you're gonna hit my house, which a few people have already went in my yard after a wedding. But it's definitely the parking. The parking is, ever since after the COVID, they put the bubbles in and they never had enough parking. They would just be lined up Fridays, Saturdays, sometimes Wednesdays. And then the delivery trucks coming all hours at it, 4:30, running diesel all day, in the morning with the bread, big trucks coming down. But on a Friday, you could not go up and down the road. You couldn't walk. You have to go to the back trail. You have to plan before you pull out. So I'm not trying to stop a business because I'm not trying to be a Karen or nothing about the business and that, but they have to have enough parking. That's my biggest concern. If he's going to have 200 people there, we'll have parking for 200 people. Not 300 and 100 down our road. I see they put temporary parking in today, but all that's going to do is just put a Band-Aid on a bleed. It's because that whole traffic is just, it's dangerous. It really is on a Friday. People are coming down, you know, and there's other stuff you can concern is employees were coming in, but that's something you talk to Ryan and say, hey, your employees are driving crazy, you know, 5 to 10, they start at 10, 80 miles an hour down the road, you know, but my biggest concern is, and I heard the ban, but I don't know, you know, I have to hear more about, you know, at the time it is and that, but my biggest concern is definitely the traffic. The traffic, it gets dangerous with the kids. I got grandkids. You can't have them in the yard. I mean, and delivery trucks, there has to be, I'd like a size limit. Maybe, you know, you don't have to have an 18-wheeler going down for bread. You know, maybe you can have a smaller truck like Amazon truck. I know he has to have deliveries, but smaller trucks and maybe a set time, you know, where, you know, not all hours of the day, you know, delivering trucks on a Friday, you know, a beer coming in on Friday, you know, it's just, everything was just crazy, you know, and so like, you know, that's just a few concerns I had, you know, I haven't read over the plans 100%, so, so that's about it, I guess.
All right, thank you. And I'll explain before the next person comes up. It's public hearing at state statute. It's literally a hearing. We cannot comment back. We can't answer questions. We can try taking the input that's given during the public hearing and address it when it's on the agenda item, which is later in the agenda tonight. But when I just look at you blankly, it doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I'm just following the law. So go on.
Thank you. Paul Lewandowski, S79W15683, Audemars Drive. Concerning the points of this conditional use agreement or proposal, the boat rental or the boat rentals. Adam mentioned kayak rentals, but the resolution says boat rentals. So if it's going to be limited to just kayaks or non-motorized boats, I'd be fine with that. Bass Bay is too small of a body of water. They have a lot of other rentals out there, especially speedboats or jet skis. So I would like the proposal to say either non-motorized boat rentals, kayaks, as you mentioned, or limited to small fishing boats, and also limit the number of boats. Again, it's a small body of water. And then boat cruises, right now, as you say, there's one pontoon boat going out and taking people. Again, will there be a limit to that? A boat cruise, I mean, granted, we're not going to put a big liner out there, but there should be a limit to the size and number of boats allowed for boat cruises. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Going once, twice. I declare this public hearing closed. There will be a couple items coming up in the agenda that we'll be talking about, so stay tuned if you're interested in that. New business for consideration. Resolution PC 034-2026, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Tractor Supply Company located at South 68 West 15440 Janesville Road, tax key number 2167995-130.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So a submittal came into the city regarding the new Tractor Supply, which opened not too long ago here in Muskego. The topic of this request is some fencing. So if you've seen the store, on the right side of the front of the store, they have an outdoor storage area that was approved by the Plan Commission. As part of the original plans that the Plan Commission approved, on the right side of that outdoor area, there was going to be a taller section of fence. And then centrally, there's a gate for vehicles or larger items, not a pedestrian, but a pedestrian can use it also. And then as you proceed towards the left, going towards the building, the original plan was to have a lower section of fence, and the thought behind that was that there was going to be a garden center feature behind it. And the idea of the lower fence was not hide this garden center feature and little facade that was proposed. Going through the permitting process, that structure got removed from the plans. And so when staff was doing their final occupancy inspections, we realized and found out that that structure was no longer being built due to some state sprinkling requirements. So as a company, they chose to not install the garden center feature, but the fencing was still left low at that point. So that was something staff questioned because the reason it was low was because of us not having a feature behind it. Normally we try to keep fencing and stuff like this consistent when we have outdoor storage yards like this. So we brought it up to the applicant. The applicant looked at a few different options, and in the end, their main suggestion was just leave it as is, without that garden center feature and allowing the fence on that left section to stay at a lower height. So that's really what the request is today, is do we leave the fence at 16 feet all the way across, or I should say adjust it to be 16 feet all the way across minus the gate areas, or do we allow it to just be an 8-foot fence if that's okay with the plan commission? The way that the resolution is written currently is that the fence does need to be adjusted to the 16-foot height. But if the plan commission would decide to allow it as it is, we would just amend the resolution. The applicant is here if there's questions or comments.
Questions or comments from the plan commission?
So what's currently behind the 8-foot high fence?
It's just general product. They didn't do this like garden structure, so it's just product.
That goes above the 8-foot?
I don't think any of it does now. In theory, it could, because there's not really a restriction of what they put behind there. In that outdoor storage area, it was kind of, you can have storage within there. I mean, the fence is open, so it's not like it's a solid style fence, so we're not trying to hide it, right? It is a display tool for them. It's just giving it some sort of screening out there.
And the product that's behind the 16-foot tall fence, same?
Yeah, there is some
Profile,
racking.
same profile?
There is some racking that's a little bit taller, but it's not taller than the fence, so I don't think that really has.
Kind of off on the sides.
Yeah, the taller stuff's kind of off on the side. It's kind of an aesthetic question of what the plan
My
commission
take
thinks.
on it would have been if there were racking and product that was well above 8 feet, and you're gonna see a haphazard view of product, then I think 16 feet sounds reasonable. If that's not the case and you can guarantee it, I'd say I'm not hung up on 16 feet in that area.
There's no racking right by the building. It's all on that far side?
That's
Okay,
correct.
that's what I thought.
Any other comments?
I would say I don't mind the lower fence. It does kind of give more of a pedestrian entrance, I guess, to that center. So if we have the taller fence, would have been nice to have the garden center behind, but I get what happened. It does kind of, put it at more of a human scale, kind of entering that area. So I don't mind that kind of area that's a little bit lower. Obviously the higher fence where the racking is, that makes some sense, but to me, it kind of is more inviting into that space, I think. So it's not a concern for me, so.
So if the consensus is to leave it as is, we would just need to amend the resolution to remove the requirement of the increased height.
So we need a motion and a second to amend.
Motion to amend the proposal to make it 8 feet on the left side of the gate.
Second that.
Any further discussion on the motion to amend? All those in favor of the motion to amend, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any further discussion on the motion as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Resolution PC 035, 2026, approval of a building site and operation plan and conditional use grant for David Rashka of Thrive Architects LLC on behalf of Bass Bay Brewhouse located at Ottermore Drive, tax key number 2217999002.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Adam?
Thanks, Mayor. So I'll get more into the detail about what's exactly being proposed here. This is where we're going to review kind of the overall project. So the submittal was received, as was noted, for a building site and operation plan and conditional use grant. Based upon the BL2 zoning, which is a lakeshore commercial district zoning that exists on the property, the bar restaurant already has a conditional use grant, so arguably it's allowed to be there, regardless of this process. But there never was formal approvals for the residential unit, kayak rentals, and the boat pontoon rides, excuse me. So as part of this, the course of action was to take the safe route, which was to go for a conditional use grant to just kind of reiterate the approvals that are already there and to focus or to also allow those other uses that were talked about, like the residents back in the building and the rental of the kayaks. So with this rebuild, the idea is to rebuild something that was similar to there before. So it's still going to be a bar restaurant. The biggest difference with this new build is it's going to be a single story structure. So instead of an upper level and a lower level, it's all going to be contained on one structure. One half of the building will be the bar restaurant with some indoor space and some outdoor space. The other portion will be the banquet facility. And then those are kind of lake facing sides. And as you get to the non-lake facing sides, kind of on the parking lot side of the building, the northeast corner will be the single unit apartment, which should be owner occupied. As well then as on the northwest corner of the building is kind of an interior space that you won't notice from the outside, but it's kind of a little utility space that will contain like freezers and dumpsters and things, so it keeps all of those out of sight from customers or residents. As far as the zoning goes, like I mentioned, BL2 zoning is the Lakeshore Commercial District, which does allow the uses as noted with the conditional use grant. The property will remain connected to city sewer. It will remain on a private well as city water isn't in that area. Stormwater management is being reviewed by our engineering team, and it will be as part of the actual building permitting. But preliminary analysis by the engineer for the project has deemed that they don't believe it's going to be necessary due to minimal increased additional impervious surfaces, given that the footprint of items now and after are very similar. As far as the construction goes, like I said, the building is just under 13,000 square feet, replacing the existing building on site. It will be a single-story building. The new building itself will be contain just under 3,000 square feet of banquet space, about 1,600 square feet of restaurant space, about 1,700 square feet of new patio space, and then the existing patio spaces where patrons sit is about 2,800 or so, giving the total customer area to right around the 2,100 square foot mark. As far as location of the building goes, it's a very similar location to where the footprint of the prior building was. There doesn't appear to be any issues with setbacks, offsets, or height, or floor area ratio. So all that is code compliant. As far as restaurant hours go, the applicant has stated that the restaurant will predominantly operate Tuesdays through Thursdays and Sundays with hours 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. for the restaurant, and Fridays and Saturdays 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Mondays are typically closed unless there's a special event or holiday. They've noted that the outdoor dining and bar service and the outside kind of patio areas will follow the allowed legal closing times per the Common Council and the liquor license that's granted for the site, and any outdoor live music would end by 10 p.m. unless regulated otherwise by the Common Council. As far as the hours of the banquets, those will follow any of the requirements by the Common Council relating to the liquor license, but typically indoor hours aren't regulated if they're indoor unless they're following all the liquor laws. Deliveries typically take place from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. They try to have them when there's not bulk customer usage, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't be a sporadic delivery at other times. Typically, the city hasn't regulated size of delivery trucks, but that's something if the Plan Commission want to talk about, they could, but that has not been something we've typically limited on projects. As far as the residential component goes, there's a unit, like I said, in the northeast corner of the building, which will be owner occupied. The unit is just under 1,100 square feet, and per the zoning, that unit has to be at least 1,100 square feet, so they'll need to add 10 square feet to that unit to make that code compliant. As well as there's an outdoor kind of yard space for that residential unit of 620 square feet that's going to be located just north of the building. And that's going to be enclosed with kind of a decorative horizontal style fence. The resolution does state that that unit will be cannot be a short-term rental and only a long-term rental, meaning owner occupied or rented for 30 days or longer, as the city cannot regulate rentals that are 30 days or longer. As part of the operations, they are specifically looking to offer kayak rentals and kayak rentals only. The resolution and the approval is very specific. There's been no talk, and the resolution does not allow any rentals other than kayaks. So no speedboats, no jet skis, no pontoon rentals. It's strictly just kayak rentals. Those are the only rentals that would be allowed. And the sightseeing boat ride is strictly just what they did before with a single pontoon boat driving people around the lake. If they would want to change any of those items, they would have to come back to the Plan Commission. Kayaks are stored along the side lot lines, and staff members assist people with the kayaks as needed. There is an existing patio area west of the existing outdoor bar that wasn't part of a past approval, so that is part of this formal approval now. The outdoor bar that was approved with a smaller roof feature was approved in the past, but there were some expansions to that. As part of this future permit, they're going to make sure they get all the proper permitting wrapped up in inspections for that covered feature. As far as the design of the building goes, the general design guide does apply to this property as it does other commercial properties in the city. Some of the main features with that general design guide is four-sided architecture and suggested 50% masonry. The building itself is proposed with white brick veneer, LP Smart Side in a white color. They also have chosen a nickel gap siding as a style for the siding to give it a little bit more of an elevated feel. And as far as the masonry percentages go, the elevations of masonry vary between 36% up to 73% on each elevation, averaging about 55%, which does meet the general design guide recommendations. The applicant stated that they've tried to create a more modern aesthetic while still giving kind of a callback to the Supper Club vibe, mostly black and white materials on the building, along with some warm wood accents. As was noted, the lake side of the building is where the main restaurant and event space will be. Those will be predominantly glass. Some of them will be operable, some of them won't be, but it definitely will give the ability to kind of open up some spaces on nice days to get a fresh breeze in there. There is also like an elevated porch feature that is located off that same lakeside part of the building, which is basically between the building and the existing patios that exist. As far as the roof goes, they're looking at an asphalt shingled roof with some limited standing seam elements on dormers as a little bit of an accent feature. As far as the overall dormers go, there are dormers, like I said, on the lake side of the building. They also are doing some dormer features on the parking lot side of the building that will serve as actually kind of a false dormer that will be recessed inside of them, which will allow them space to place mechanicals so that the mechanicals are not visible on site. The resolution is noted that any kind of mechanicals, HVAC equipment, things like that, transformers have to be screened in city approved screening, and that's one option and way to do that. As far as the existing storage buildings on site, there are 2 storage buildings on site. They both predominantly are whitish in feature now. One of the comments is that they're going to keep that white scheme on the building. The roofs right now don't exactly match what's proposed, and the applicant is asked to leave those to a time when the roofs need to be replaced to make those match the new proposed building. As far as parking on site goes, the existing parking lot will be utilized for parking. They are kind of reorganizing things a little bit, restriping some things, as much of it's going to either be overlaid or pulverized and replaced. And then the section in the northeast corner of the parking lot that currently is gravel is going to become paving. Any of the new areas of the site are going to have curb and gutter. Any of the areas where they're not doing new paving but just doing the overlay they're asking to not have curb and gutter and just keep what's there. As far as the code goes for parking, they're required to have 2 stalls for every 100 square feet of customer area, and that's the minimum identified requirement. So based upon the dining spaces in the restaurant, the event space, the new patio, the existing patio, and that's a square footage of 9,120 square feet. They need approximately 183 parking stalls, which does meet the code requirement. They are proposing, I believe it's 189 stalls. My memory serves me right, just gotta find the number here. So they are compliant with the number of parking stalls with the additions that they're putting on the site. As far as locations of the parking stalls, they do meet the 10-foot offset from residential areas, as well as supplying some fencing and landscaping around the perimeter of the parking lots in the new areas of the site. As far as parking islands go, there are certain areas of the site that have some existing parking islands that they're going to kind of expand and keep and landscape. But what they're asking in lieu of, because they're adding these larger landscaped areas in the parking lot, is to be granted a waiver to allow the parking landscape islands every 10 feet. So that is one request that they're making here. All of the drive aisles and the parking stalls meet our minimum requirements for size. And there's one small area in the parking lot that will have one way, one little loop, and that will have to be properly signed and marked on the ground for clarity and safety. As far as other mechanicals and dumpsters go, like I said, there's an enclosed utility space on the northwest side of the building. This will house all kind of the stuff you normally don't want to see, like kitchen coolers, equipment, soiled linens, trash bins, things like that. Those false dormers I mentioned will be utilized to help screen some of the mechanicals, and any future transformers or other outdoor material will have to be approved with city-approved screening. They have submitted a preliminary landscape plan. The formal plan will be reviewed more thoroughly at time of permit submittal. There's no specific signage proposed at this time. Any of the lighting that is proposed right now does meet city specs as far as the foot candle levels at the lot lines. Proper fixtures meet all of our fixture specs. The only comment on the lighting is that the concrete light pole bases for any new or replaced lighting or light poles or bases needs to be 6 inches above grade, not 2'6". Other than that, the resolution does contain a number of conditions to make sure that everything goes smooth here. Some of the more important ones being talking about how seating is only allowed in the areas that were identified in the seating diagram to help ensure that the parking numbers can be met. The gates for the utility enclosed space must be solid enough to hide the things behind them. And then any of the mechanicals or rooftop items must be screened from city view. So subject to those items that were noted, staff is recommending approval due to compliance with the ordinances.
Discussion, comments. I assume you're sitting this one out?
Yeah, due to my relationship with the applicant, I'll be sitting out.
Regarding parking, how does the ratio of parking stalls to square footage, you went through a lot of detail, I've already forgotten the numbers. How do they relate in the old structure versus the new structure?
So that structure was added on to so many times, and a lot of them being before we ever had parking requirements that were looked at by the city. So I can't tell you that for sure. I can tell you they have more parking now, quite a bit more of marked parking and paved parking now.
In
the new plan, yeah. They're really maximizing how they laid it out and put parking literally in any nook or cranny that they could, as that was one of the really big things that staff stressed to them in our discussions, was knowing that parking has always been a concern there. So the code says that, for every 100 square feet you have of area for restaurant space or bar space that a customer can be in, it's 2 stalls. So really it's 1 stall for every 50 square feet. Okay. And doing the math then, 183 stalls are required, and they meet that requirement.
Dave Rashka, Thrive Architects. As Adam said, there weren't good records of the building before it burned down, but based on what we were looking at, it was about 19,000 square feet. So we are reducing the overall usage by about 5,000 square feet from what it was. And that entire northern portion of the lot is additional parking over what was there prior. So I think the numbers work.
Okay.
He's a petitioner. Any other feedback?
As far as the landscape islands, given that this is kind of like an area where there's concern about parking, I think the landscape islands are, because they're not there, I'm okay with. It's, we want to try to park as many people on the site as we can just to alleviate some of the traffic that's happening on the other city streets. So to me, the landscape islands are okay to remove or not have in there, so.
I have a question on and I should know this, but I just don't, on the islands within the parking lot. Anything besides aesthetics that they add to it? Is there like a practical reason for having them, or?
Yeah, avoid the sea of asphalt. That's why we have normally the 10 stalls, but it's not uncommon to waive.
Typically, I would agree with it, but quite honestly, if we could squeeze a couple more parking spots out of not having islands, I would rather have the more parking.
I think the islands that are left, I don't know how much you gain. If you look at the plan, they're like kind of I hate to say wasted space areas, but you kind of have 2 different geometries in the parking lot. And Mayor, like for example, I can't
looking at them, right?
Yeah. I don't know how much you really gain.
Okay. I mean, even picking up 4 spots or 4 possible people that aren't parking in front of homes down into this subdivision.
Yep. Yeah, I think you could still keep a lot of them. I guess I'm not sure we'd sneak them out, but we're always open to ideas for sure. I mean, those weren't things like what's there wasn't asked for. I think those were kind of, like you said, kind of leftover spots, sort of pinch points. They did, though, definitely, this is a couple renditions of the parking we've seen to help kind of really sneak out. Like they did change some of the geometries of the parking in the northern half of the site. If there would be a way to sneak a few stalls out, because you're not going to eliminate all of these. There's just, because it's too much wasted space. Since they're there, it is a good spot to add some landscaping in lieu of those every 10 islands. But yeah, I think we'd be open to a few more if they could get them to fit in.
Yeah, I concur. Anywhere you can squeeze a spot in would be worth it.
I don't think we should clear them all together because you're not going to gain that many more stalls. But
Right.
maybe you can sneak a few on an end or something.
It controls flow path too,
Yep.
Particularly if you're full. And I've seen that often enough. It does control the path of egress into and out of the place. But I think anywhere you can get some additional spots is worthwhile.
And just as a comment, if they can come back with the building permits and say, hey, we were able to, trim this corner off and that got us 2 more stalls or something, you know what I mean? Still keeping the geometry the same, but maybe like just on an area that, I don't know exactly where that would happen. Maybe kind of by the entry drive or something. You know, that's something we could, not up by the road, but back by the lot. Maybe that's something we could just approve the staff level at the building permit.
I'd be okay with that. I don't know what the rest of the commission feels.
Parking was stressed as a big thing. they
So,
look at.
let them rework it if they are able to come, just work with staff on it. Doesn't mean-
Absolutely.
If they can't, they can't.
One other question I did have was, that the patio area is a great asset to this site, obviously against the lake and stuff. I do see the kind of the ramp coming down from the, on the west side of the building, and I think the path probably on the east side also is an accessible route down to that area. I'm just not seeing a connection between the gathering space or the banquet space and that there seems to be some stairs going down there. Is that the accessible route, I guess, for that area?
So are you talking about the lakeside?
Correct, yeah, right.
Exterior, right? Not
Exterior, yeah.
Yeah, currently the two, as you mentioned, the 2 paths on the east and west side are both accessible. We do have, from the venue space, they'll have to go through the patio spaces. There is another ramp being featured over on the lower left side to get back down to the lower patios. It's the ramps obviously take up a lot of space, but there is connection throughout from the wedding space down through the patios back out to the lake, to the dock area is all accessible.
Okay. And then just a question on exterior materials wise, I know like a lot of the aesthetic is kind of the black and white. The windows, I saw the storefront said dark bronze. I know that's probably nearly black. Is there a reason why it's just not a black color to kind of match all the fascia and the standing seam metal roof and things like that?
Yeah, the dark bronze is a stock color by most window manufacturers.
Okay.
And if you hold it up to a black, you can't visually tell the difference. Black ends up being a special order and a substantial cost increase to go to that, whereas the dark bronze is one of their stock colors. But we see that typically matched up with a black. And again, if you hold the color chips next to each other, it's hard to visually tell the difference. It's a very, very dark bronze color.
Okay, thank you.
Any other feedback? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Thank you. Resolution PC 036-2026, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for the Bass Bay Brewhouse Garden located at South 79 West 15851 Oddmar Drive, tax key 2217999002.
Move to approve.
Second.
Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So this similar site, but a little different topic. As the Plan Commission may remember, back in April, the applicants came to us kind of in this downtime until the building is built. They're trying to, help keep the business going. So they were approved by the Plan Commission under a certain slew of conditions to be allowed to operate the beer garden kind of in the outside area of the site, subject to a whole bunch of different rules with parking and capacities and things like that. They are scheduled to open tomorrow. Everything that we needed to be addressed has been addressed in order for them to do that. So they're in the right direction there. But kind of 2 things have come up. So the resolution here predominantly talks about a temporary frame tent structure. So one of the items that they were trying to think about was what happens if they do have people there and weather takes a turn. As we all know, that can sometimes happen in a surprise. So they worked with a vendor to secure a rigid frame kind of tent structure. So it's not like your typical, I'll call it like a circus tent with ropes and stuff. It's a rigid frame, definitely more significant, safer, more aesthetically pleasing structure. They have already started to erect this, but they knew that was kind of at the risk depending where this goes tonight, obviously. And the structure is about 39 feet by 59 feet, and it's pretty much covering the patio area is what their goal was here. So just to give that patio area some color, cover, some shade, some weather protection, just during this spring, summer, fall beer garden season. So when their beer garden approvals would expire in the fall, this approval would expire with that. So staff doesn't have any issues with that. It's probably a good idea to plan for those inadvertent things that could happen out there. Another item then that just came to our attention today that we talked to the applicants about that isn't in the resolution, but I would request that we amend. When we had our original discussions with them, there was talk about what they were doing for bar area. And, there is their existing bar area that's under the cover, so that's going to remain. And the other talk was to have just some like portable rolling coolers and stuff on site. Kind of since then, they realized that they needed a way to contend with keeping stuff cool because they don't have the building with the coolers. So the pictures that are in front of you tonight kind of show some pictures of some trailers that their vendor for their beer products was able to provide them. And then there's a little site plan. So what we're asking and what the applicant's asking is that they be allowed for this temporary beer garden. This isn't a long-term thing. This is just during the summer fall beer garden, to be allowed the 2 mobile vending units and little bar areas that are shown on the site plan, one kind of towards the southwest lot line, and one kind of centrally located off the south side of the existing patio area. And you can kind of see pictures of what those look like, and it's just to help distribute the customers that might be there during this season. Staff doesn't have any issues with this. I think the only thing that we would need to do is, if Plan Commission's okay with this, would be to amend the resolution to allow the, temporary bar setups per the approved attached plan. And I would just make a note that because one of them being a little closer to the lot line, that if there would become any, valid neighbor complaints in that area, that maybe staff would have to work with them to relocate that. But if we haven't heard any issues, then we'll leave well enough alone.
Comments? I see nodding heads. Are you okay with that, or?
I guess the only question I had is the temporary tent. Is there any issues with, could it become a hazard if there's a storm?
This is like, it's not just like something they put up on their own. They hired a company. There's like a minimal rental time because it is such a significant structure, properly anchored. I think there's details in the plan packet with it. Our inspectors were out there and some other stuff today, and they didn't see any issues that they had concerns with it, excuse me.
As Adam has pointed out earlier today also, that, it's not going to have to go through a winter or anything else out there, so you don't have to worry about the freezing and thawing of the ground. So.
Right. It's a pretty robust structure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the approval for the beer garden is very specific. It doesn't go into the winter or into next year. If they would want to do something next year, if the main part isn't open, they'd have to come back for that.
Great. Sounds good.
So we would need an amendment then.
Any concern about fire protection under a temporary structure like? I don't know what the code would be, but I assume engineering would look at that.
Yeah, any kind of tents, I'm not a tent expert. I know a lot of times they're fire retardant material. That's typically not something for temporary structures that we oversee. Like when there's festivals and stuff and people set up tents, we're not involved in that any form.
They put tents up for all the fireworks and things like that. I'm sure they're not sprinkled.
Yeah, and the fire department is alerted of these approvals and stuff, and we can bring it to their attention too, and if they want to double check any concerns.
Since you're gonna put the public in there, let's cover that base, please.
Any other comments? And first, I'll need a motion to amend as Adam had stated for the placing of the temporary trailers.
I'll make the motion to amend to allow the temporary trailers.
Anything else on that motion?
I'll second it.
No, I think that's fine.
Any discussion on the motion to amend? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Any further discussion on the motion as amended? The only thing I want to point out, I know it's not part of this, but the question had come up regarding the permanent building, but can you get us up to date where they are for parking and what their plans are, just so the public can be more aware?
For the temporary use?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but a good portion of the parking lot that was there that is currently there is going to be utilized during this beer garden period. There's a small portion of it excuse me, that is fenced off for construction staging. They do have that fence around there to make sure that stays safe. And then the area that was like previously gravel parking is still there. They are striping it. Now we know gravel doesn't stripe the best, but they're making a good effort, and that's something that they're going to revisit every so often to make sure that the striping stays, trying to have some, some kind of illusion of order, where people should be parking or not. Part of their original approval, they were working with the school district to lease a section of Mill Valley's, the far west end of Mill Valley Schools parking lot for shuttling. But I think everyone kind of realized, including themselves, the applicant, that was a pretty far distance. So in that meantime, they have worked with Impro, and Impro has offered 2 of their lots. So basically, when the beer garden is open, Impro is typically not open. So Impro has a signed agreement with them that's been provided to the city that they allow them to use 2 of their different parking lots, totaling, I think it's over 150 to 200 stalls at Impro, if needed, where they'll be shuttling, providing people back and forth. So that will be an option that was a requirement of their original beer garden approval, and that has been provided to the city.
And in addition to that, the city has put up temporary no parking in the neighborhood there on one side of the street to try to limit filling the neighborhood with cars as well. So, and we'll see how that works, and we'll make adjustments if needed past that if it gets to be a problem. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion as amended? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Thank you. Resolution PC 037, 2026, approval of a preliminary plot for Gulfview Estates subdivision located along the north side of Ryan Drive, tax key number 22559790002 and 22559980001.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion, Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. So this proposal for Gulfview Estates has been in front of the Plan Commission in a couple different forms over the past years. The most recent being a rezoning request that Plan Commission recommended approval of, and the Common Council did approve for a rezoning that would allow a subdivision that equates into 19 single-family lots with 4 outlots. So this is just now a preliminary plat solidifying what that rezoning granted that they were provided not too long ago. As part of it, the proposal for this subdivision does meet the minimum lot requirements. It does meet the minimum width requirements without any kind of special waivers. It does provide road stubs to the west, north, and east, which are all lots that have division potential. They do meet zoning and comp plan designations for this area. The developer will be extending then at their own expense the roads and infrastructure that goes into this development, including municipal sewer and municipal water. And if this development is proposed, they're hoping to kind of get things going as soon as possible. The city does have to finish reviewing construction plans as one of the steps necessary, eventually preparing a developer's agreement, and then that would allow them to do full construction on the site. But staff is recommending approval subject to technical review, which is occurring as we speak.
Discussion or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Resolution PC 038, 2026, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Nick's Place located on Martin Drive, tax key 2174991.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a building site and operation plan amendment for some exterior changes at Nick's Place, which is located off of Martin. They want to do some significant upgrades and improvements to the exterior of this building. What they're specifically looking at doing is replacing all the windows on the building, with the exception of a few that were recently replaced. They're going to be adding new window trim. They're going to be adding hardy board siding and batten style siding to be installed in the lower half of the building, and hardy lap style siding, replacing the siding on the second floor area. The new siding and window trim will be expanded to all 4 sides of the structure of the same color scheme. They're going to carry a dark gray color with black trim around the windows, replacing the gray and white color scheme currently on the building. There's no other exterior changes proposed at this time. Staff definitely thinks this should be a nice improvement to the property and recommends approval.
Any discussion?
The only question I had was in the application. What is Nick's Place?
It's
What's he use?
A salon.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Resolution 039, 2026, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Biosource Cultures and Flavors located on Janesville Road, tax key number 2165978.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion, Adam?
Thank you. So this is another building site and operation plan amendment for Biosource. What they're looking at doing here is they have some large equipment in the building, and getting it in and out can often be challenging when they either upgrade or need to replace items. So their request is remove a portion of western wall and replace that brick with a new overhead door so that they will allow them to get that equipment in and out of the building to keep running their business successfully. It will be approximately a 10-foot by 10-foot opening. They are proposing to install a roll-up door in that area, and that roll-up door will be painted to match the brick color. Blends into the building as much as possible. There are no other changes proposed at this time, and staff is recommending approval.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Resolution 040, 2026, approval of the sale of fireworks for TNT Fireworks at Pick and Save located on Janesville Road, tax key number 2199999065.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion, Adam?
So this proposal here is for temporary firework stand and the Pick and Save parking lot. This is a site that has had firework sales in the past. The only thing a little bit different this year, rather than having a tent, they're going to be selling out of an actual shipping container that's like, has been modified to serve as a stand to sell out of. They are proposing some temporary banners on that sign per the approved plans. As far as operations go, general operations will be set up on June 23rd. Operations of the actual sales would be June 23rd through July 5th. And if approved, they would be setting up sometime after June 15th and have everything down by July 10th. So what they're proposing here is very similar and typical with what we see with our other seasonal fireworks sales on site. The only thing we really want to note is that the city has, it has come to our attention recently, and the same topic came up with some approvals last month, that some vendors in the city, not necessarily this one, but some vendors have been selling some fireworks that are not allowed to be sold by city ordinances and or state law. So the city will be doing random inspections to ensure that the codes are being followed for safety reasons, and that if any fireworks are found being sold that aren't allowed to be, that they will be shut down and we'll have to close up the stand and remove from the site at that time. The resolution is drafted as such, and staff recommends approval.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes as well. Resolution PC 041, 2026, approval of the sale of fireworks for TNT Fireworks at Walmart located on Moreland Road, taxi number 2169999003.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion, Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. So similar to the last request, just this one is at Walmart. They've also done past sales at this site. Only really difference here is this, they are using a tent 20 by 40 in size along with an 8 by 20 storage bin for overnight security. Similar operation days and times, similar concern with making sure that they're selling the right proper stuff or their approval could be revoked. And staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Resolution PC 043, 2026, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Tex Team USA LLC at Pick and Save located on Janesville Road. Oh, I'm sorry. Back up. I missed one. Resolution PC 042, 2026, approval of building site and operation plan amendment for Firewise Barbecue at Piggly Wiggly on Janesville Road, tax key number 2192973.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion, Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the Plan Commission is aware, once in a while, this hasn't come up a lot. I think we had it once a year or two ago, but it's not a real common request, is the idea of food trucks selling in parking lots. So we were recently approached by Firewise Barbecue who wanted to sell in the city of Muskego. So they've been reaching out to different business owners and they were trying to find a site that worked for them. They ended up landing in the Piggly Wiggly site. And so what they did is they reached out to us and found out kind of what they needed to do for approvals. And so what they're asking for is to set up in that Piggly Wiggly parking lot, kind of on the northern part of the site. Now I know the site right now technically is a couple different owners, so they'll be kind of more the north edge of the store, not the full north edge of the parking lot. They are not along the front main driveway as we had concerns with access there, so they're just stepping into the parking lot a little bit, and it's a site plan in the packet. They are looking to sell there on Wednesdays from as soon as their approval kicks in until October 31st. As was noted, typical operations on the site will be from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. They have a 30-foot trailer pulled by a cargo van. They have, they don't like have seating or anything on site. Obviously, it's a kind of a grab and go kind of style. And they do have approval from the owner of the property to be on this property and to use the restrooms in the Piggly Wiggly. There's no other proposed changes on site. We should note that there is a current other temporary vendor in that parking lot with the flower sales. Now that is on the southern end of the site, so it's a different site, but that's something to be aware of in case that's a concern of the Plan Commission. So the Plan Commission could discuss the kind of general idea regarding how they feel this should be looked at as far as the sales in this parking lot. The resolution is currently drafted for approval.
Go ahead.
I don't know if I'm supposed to, like common council, raise my. So Firewise Barbecue, they came out to Lake Danoon this last staff appreciation. And I mean, so they really treated our staff very well. They have great food. I think it'd be a great addition to our city to add them in. They have a great product. The owner's real nice. And like I said, they've already kind of stepped in and helped us at one of the schools one time.
Any other comments?
I can vouch. I've eaten at I think Menards in Franklin or no Hales Corners, right? Yeah. So I agree. Good product.
All right. So yes, they have a great product. It's really good. But one of the most requested things we get in this community are more restaurants. And it's not helping our existing restaurants by allowing someone to come in on a wheeled trailer hundreds of feet away from businesses that are trying to make a living and have paid taxes and support our community by having an investment in it. I would rather they found a better location that wasn't in front of somebody they're competing with directly that pays taxes in this community. But maybe that's just me. So my thoughts.
I would kind of agree with that. I think, the other thing too is it kind of opens up the doors. I know we had something come up for something in front of the Fleet Farm, I believe, that was denied, I believe, or we didn't allow it just because, again, like Mayor said, it's kind of supporting local businesses. We want to have them succeed. Great product. I've had it myself. It's very good. But I think we want to make sure that the brick and mortar stores that are in Muskego are taken care of as well. So I'm opposed to it.
That's a double-edged sword, though.
Mm-hmm.
In that you're short of restaurant space, and yet your commitment to brick and mortar is a fairly high entry barrier. So I know you want it, but are you going to get it, and how are you going to offer opportunities for those who want to bring it in? East Troy has LD's barbecue. They were in the Quick Trip at the corner for years, and they took over a building and have a very successful business right now. So it's a potential that someone who is a great entrepreneur has an opportunity to see a community like ourselves to serve and grow. But how are they going to start? You're a guy in a trailer that has a great product. So I do agree with you that you are potentially cutting the knees off of your own taxpayer base. But at the same token, I don't know of anybody, and it hasn't come since I've been here, that's putting another restaurant in that's standalone and unique and really has been ultra successful. We've have some, but not huge. So I'm of the opinion that you serve the public and you see where it goes. And if that's the only thing that we have and it becomes the corral of food trucks, I will agree with you then, because then you are promoting the food truck business. I don't see us promoting the food truck business here.
Alderman Bryce.
And I agree, like, we should support our brick and mortars, and I do support our brick and mortar restaurants very often. But Firewise is also just gonna be in town one day a week for 8 hours. It's not like it's there every day. And on Facebook, there are residents who say they would like a better variety of restaurants. And if they're not, the restaurants aren't coming in right now, so if we can provide on a Wednesday from 10 to 6, a barbecue option for them, I don't think one day a week is gonna shut down any restaurant in our town. But if it does become the food truck corral, I would say something different, but I don't think it's a bad idea. One day a week, good food, it's only going to October. I like the option.
I guess I would say just kind of bigger picture, it's kind of opening the doors for kind of mobile things, maybe even other kind of mobile things like this, like some of the other things with the clothes collection bins that we've really tried to discourage. I just think it kind of opens up the doors for some of that stuff and kind of the bigger picture, not just food, but, you know, is somebody going to come with some other things that now we're having to kind of go through and look at more closely, so.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't like the clothes bins either, but I mean, we also have the Pina food truck that visits a couple different sites in town every week. Just saying.
That is operating in violation, has been notified of such.
I figured it would be.
They still show up.
Yeah, I guess, I get your point that this may not impact another business coming, but it sure may impact a business leaving. We've already lost one restaurant in that mall in the last 6 months. I'm afraid of losing another one. I don't like increasing the barrier. It's small, owning a small business is hard. And losing, you know, a significant amount of sales in one day can make or break any small business. Cause I mean, these are just mom and pop owners. They're not, you know, this isn't the, you know, I'm a business, I'm rich. Most of these people are very middle class that own these businesses, and, you know, it does threaten their livelihood, in my opinion. Like I said, I like the idea of, if, you know, this would be some kind of business incubator that they would progress into, you know, a brick and mortar. They got a good product. They haven't done that in the last 10 years where they've been around the different strip malls in New Berlin until New Berlin finally came up with the policy of what I'm talking about right now. So that's why they're here. And if they're going to be here, I'd rather find a place that doesn't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 competitors within probably 800 feet.
So splitting hairs here, is the location of your concern as much as
that's the biggest one.
The theory of bringing in food trucks?
Yeah. I don't like them in general because I'd like to get more restaurants.
Right.
But if we're going to allow them, I sure don't like them right in front of another place.
That's a reasonable consideration. Yeah, I'll differentiate my opinion based on that, yeah.
At this time, I believe that this is pretty minor. I agree this could change in time. I think New Berlin was facing a lot more challenges than we are. We don't have a lot of requests for food trucks. Milk Can was once a food truck, became a permanent restaurant here in town, and they wouldn't have gotten started probably without that. I, right now, am not opposed to food trucks. I would still support it. I think in time, we'll have to address this differently, and that's where I feel I am today.
All right.
And as the mayor mentioned, if this, because this approval is just for this calendar year, it doesn't go into next year. So if they want to do it next year there or somewhere else, they'll have to come back. And as was Mayor alluded to, there are a handful of food vendors that are not following the rules now. And I don't think the letter's going out yet, but they're getting ready to go out. So they will be getting notified that we may have a bunch coming back here because a lot of people are pretty rogue like that. Firewise is doing it at least the right way for now.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Graff?
For the amendment.
Yes.
That'd be
Yes. Thank you.
Alderman Bryce?
If I want the food truck, it's yes.
Aye.
Yeah.
To approve.
Aye.
I do want the food truck. Aye.
Yes.
Commissioner Cieslak?
No.
Commissioner Bartlett?
Aye.
Mayor Pifalski?
No.
Uh,
Passes 3-2. Thank you.
Passes, yeah, 42, sorry.
All right. Resolutions 043, 2026, approval of a building site operation plan amendment for Tex Team USA LLC at Pick and Save located on Janesville Road, tax key number 219999065.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion. Adam.
So on that topic that just came off of clothing donation bins, we have our more recent submittal. So as you guys might recall, over the last year or so, we had some issues with these popping up everywhere. We know in a lot of communities they can become super problematic, not saying all of them, but many do, as many of them are not supervised properly and end up being a big mess of piles of stuff around them. We know we've had at least one with a fire inside of it that became an issue. And there was a request for one of these I think it was late last year, early this year, and in the end it ended up getting denied due to a handful of concerns the Plan Commission had. As part of that, the city sent letters to all the ones that we knew existed. Almost all of them have been removed. This was one company that did remove theirs in the Pick and Save parking lot, but they did now formally talk to us and say, hey, we want to try to be allowed to come back here. We're going to go through the right steps this time. So this request in front of you is for this Text Team USA to set up 2 storage bins in the Pick and Save parking lot. They would kind of be in like the southwest edge of the parking lot, so kind of closest to the building where Jimmy Johnson stuff is, but in the Pick and Save area. They would be located within a parking stall or 2 kind of out of the way, so they would not be obstructing any kind of typical traffic or drive aisle on the site. As part of this request, a couple of the things that this applicant has mentioned is that one of the things that kind of differentiates them from a lot of other vendors is that they do end up having a camera that's mounted to this that they can monitor. They say part of that has to do with like safety and vandalism. Part of that has to do with they can tell if there's stuff outside the bins. They are noting to us that they're planning every other day pickups. So with that being the case, they are going to be out there pretty often. As a comparison, the last vendor that did not get approved was going to do like once a week pickups. One of the things though, and some of the other things that came up with the past question that might become questions here is things like if a truck's picking up, where do they park? Are they blocking the drive aisle? Are they not? Do we want this item in the middle of the parking lot, or we prefer it closer to the building? On that past site, we wanted it closer to the building so it didn't stand out as much like a sore thumb, or especially if there's stuff around it. There was some questions about the aesthetics of the bin, the pickup schedule, and one item too was the idea of kind of having the property owner being like a co-applicant to kind of have some skin in the game. So like I said, as was noted with the past use, there's a lot of similarities, but there are still different things that are out here. I think important ones, like I said, they do have the camera. They are picking up more often. Some of the things I'm not sure what we think about is where it's located versus in the parking lot versus against the building. I think that it's a pretty good that if we are going to allow it, that the pickup every other day, as long as they can commit to that, isn't a bad idea. We just want to make sure that there's not stuff spread around, and hopefully the camera helps with that. So this is something that the Plan Commission should discuss. If approved, it is set up for an annual review every year in March, so we will be checking it to be sure that they're following their plans. We have it noted that everything has to be completely concealed inside, and if anything is outside, it has to be immediately picked up to avoid any kind of unsightly outdoor storage, which could lead to a citation. And they note that if we note in the resolution that if there would be anything in the bin that needs upkeep, they have to repair that within 3 days. What they note is that they keep stuff to repair the bins in their vehicle, but we have noted within 3 days. So the Plan Commission resolution right now is written for approval, but the Plan Commission should discuss where they want to go with this.
Who wants to start? Commissioner Cieslik.
So this came up, I think, a couple months ago for a establishment on Janesville Road, and
About 6 months.
Yep, it was denied. I think the main issue I have with this is that it's these are kind of collection places for stuff that maybe doesn't even go in the bin. That's kind of what I've seen before. It also kind of opens the door for bigger things like, okay, maybe someone wants to put some kind of vending machine or some other kind of, just kind of opens the door for other things that maybe we're not aware of or that wouldn't be good, right? So I just think they're kind of collection areas. As much as they monitor it, that's great. I just think it kind of, we spend all this time going through Plan Commission and having aesthetics of the building and stuff, and then we put these big kind of unsightly bins and stuff kind of out in the parking lot. I think it's kind of it kind of circumvents the process we're trying to have for the built environment of Muskego, right? So that's my 2 cents. I just think there's tons of other donation areas that people can drop stuff off at, and there's lots of options. So I just think this is really not needed. So
Adam, remind me what was the conclusion on the bin that was located on the east side of?
By the laundromat.
By the laundromat.
Yeah, I mean, they did eventually come here. They were one that was kind of caught without approval. They came here. In the end, after a bunch of delays, they ended up getting denied. I don't think there was a single sole reason. I think a lot of the items that Commissioner Cecily just mentioned were some of those items, the idea of what gets put around them, where is it stored. Theirs originally was at the parking lot. As they proposed, they'd eventually proposed it back by the building. But then there was questions with, blocking parking stalls when people are loading and unloading, things like that. So in the end, it was denied.
Is Pick and Save co-sponsor for this?
They've signed a letter acknowledging it's there. I don't know if I would formally call them a co-sponsor or not. I think they signed, maybe it was the application. So they're acknowledging it's there and they're giving permission to be there, but I don't know how much skin is in the game.
Yeah, doesn't sound like much.
I mean, I guess the question would be
Like
if that was a question, we'd have to figure out what's the level of commitment we want from them and how do we get that? But I don't know if that changes.
Well, without guidelines, I think it'd be a stretch for us to approve this and not approve the one that was going to be on the east side at the laundromat. So my take is I wouldn't approve it as it's written.
Anyone else want to make a comment? I'll go on record. I don't like these things. I don't see what benefit they bring to the community. We wouldn't allow a bright green shed attached to any of the buildings. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I just don't see any public good besides it might save somebody a trip to Goodwill or some other thrift shop that's a nonprofit on this. There's no community investment, there's nothing. And there's very little upside and a lot of possible downside that could come from these.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I guess, precedence and consistency is probably the most important thing to me. This is a transition that we're making, and I can see the value in what's been shared and expressed. I guess I would too now change my viewpoint a little bit, and I would agree that I do not want to support this. I just feel like what we were working with before and where we were, and there was a lot of donation boxes around town, and this has become a thing. We've seen this come in. I've struggled because I've straddled this idea of we're approving LP tanks in front of buildings. We're approving storage bins that sell wood out of. We're approving, and so the consistency has to be there. And that's where I struggled with this on the last go arounds. This is now its own independent request. As an independent standalone request, I guess I have a hard time supporting it. When it comes in as part of the business, I probably would change my tune again. So that's where I stand right now.
All right. Further comments? So if you are against this, you would vote nay. If you're for it, you vote aye. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Unanimously rejected. Resolution PC 044 2026, approval of building site and operation plan for PEA Properties LLC located on Kristen Drive, tax key number 2196996002.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion, Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a building site and operation plan amendment for a new building. This is located just behind the Associated Bank, kind of across the street from the Fab House. This is a lot that has been vacant for quite a long time. It's been zoned commercial, at least my entire time here, so quite a long time. The owners of the property who own a local building company, PEA Builders, and they're looking at making this their company's office. So the predominant use would be the office for PEA Builders. There is a space also in the building that could either be used as like a rental space for a future separate office user, or they've proposed potentially like a smaller event space, along with like a garage area in the back of the building. So as was noted, the zoning and land use both comply with the B3 and commercial land uses that are in the plans. They will have to connect to all proper utilities on site. The site will have to be analyzed for stormwater management to make sure they meet all DNR and MMSD and city stormwater regulations. This project is subject to the downtown design guide and the general design guide given its location. So the building proposes just over 3,700 square feet, includes about 919 square feet for the PEA builders, 721 square feet for the small event space or future office user, 587 square feet of shared space that involves a conference room, bathroom, and kitchenette area, and 1,550 square feet of garage space in the back of the building. As was noted, the main use would be for PEA builders, and the main operating office hours would be Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30, with some limited weekend and night activities depending on the construction staff schedule. The event space that's shown as the possible office would operate potentially on weeknights from 4:30 to 10, or potentially from 8 a.m. to 10 if it was used as an office tenant. As far as was mentioned before, the garage that's in the back of the building would be used for PEA builders. It would store non-hazardous construction materials, lighting fixtures, lumber, plywood, tools, things like that, company vehicles. The tenant space would also, whoever fills the tenant space down the road would need a separate business registration to make sure that they're allowed there. Prior to any, let's take a step back here. Relating this other space that's there, like I said, it could be future office space, or they're talking about possible event space. If they were toying with doing the event space, that's one of the questions that staff really had here as it relates to parking. We know event spaces, it's not always the easiest to predict who's going to be there, but we do have some of the equations in the code we can look at. They were noting that the event space would hold events up to 50 people. But one of the concerns of staff would be the idea is if we were to allow it as an event space, making sure there's enough parking. And I think one of the ways to do that is to kind of look at what other users could be on the site at one time. And I'll talk about more about that in a minute. As far as the architecture goes, like I said, it's subject to the design guides. They kind of have a prairie style building. I think the building is a nice design, kind of has a residential style or character to it. It's a single story structure. Since it is surrounded on the south side by a residence, they kind of try to tie that residential feel into the building, but still give it some professional character. They are using a variety of stacked stones, cedar plank siding, rigid stack siding, and some paneling. The stacked stone is located mostly in the lower portions of the building, but extends to the soffits in a few locations. And then the siding materials are typically between the windows, on the entryways, and more towards the garage spaces. The front of the building is a double set of entry doors with standard windows. On the side of that, between the windows, there's horizontal windows that are a bit taller. The design guide typically requires their suggested 50% masonry and overall quality design, four-sided architecture. They have provided calculations on the elevations, and the buildings are each over 50% masonry. One side I think was slightly lower, but they average 50% between the four sides. As far as the garage area goes in the back of the building, like I said, that's going to just be housing their vehicles and has similar materials, but it is attached to the building. It's not a detached structure. Height, setback, and offsets are all compliant with the zoning. As far as the site access goes, there's one access drive off of Kristen Drive leading onto the site. We'll lead past the building, going back to the garage spaces. 3 parking stalls are identified parallel immediately on the north side as you drive into the site, with 2 additional stalls in front of the building. Towards the rear of the building, there's going to be 12 other additional traditional parking stalls, with 6 additional stalls being located in front of the garage and garage doors. Using the parking stalls in the front of the garage and the garage doors for a total up to 23 parking stalls proposed on site. They do meet the drive aisle size and parking stalls for the most part. There was a couple numbers I think we had to verify that would have to be checked at building permit time to make sure that those numbers are fully met. As was noted, like I said, the question kind of relates to users on the site and how much parking is out there. As we know, we've had some users that parking has become a problem with. So if the PEA builders are on site, that could account for up to 8 people on site at a time. That would only leave, I think it's 12 additional stalls. Sorry, I'm just looking at my math here. Yeah, some of the stalls would have to be adjusted in size. That would lead at least 12 additional stalls for the future office user, if there was going to be a future office user. If the additional space was to be used for event space on evening and weekends with a capacity of 50 people, and if we account for more, they typically are accounting for 2 visitors or more per vehicle. So the code usually would require, depending on which code section we analyze, between 15 and 25 parking stalls for the event use. So if the future tenant is going to end up being a small event venue and not exceed the 50 people, then any events in that space can probably not begin until everyone else has left the parking lot. So the site is not allowed to have any kind of commercial vehicles parked overnight. So when business closes for the day, the site should be completely empty. And that may meet the concerns of the event space then. There could be a few bleed over stalls into the road, and that's something the Plan Commission would need to talk about. But like I noted, any kind of trailers, supplies, company vehicles have to be stored in the garage or off-site as part of this approval. One of the things that is on the site plan is they are not showing any curb and gutter on the property. And typically when a project is in a semi-developed area, in this case, it's just a second tier building off of a main city arterial. We typically, in the design guides and codes, look to see curb and gutter on the site. They are not proposing curb and gutter on the site. And that is definitely something that staff is highly recommending. Can't remember the last time we had a new site for a commercial office building that didn't have it, especially being only one building off of Janesville Road. So that is something that they are asking for a waiver to, but we are recommending that they add to the site and Plan Commission can discuss. When it comes to parking adjacent to the residential areas, the code does talk about having some screening. So we are suggesting screening on the parking lot area, kind of in the back of the building, kind of screening the south side of it, just to make sure any headlights there don't shine in the backyard of the adjacent neighbors. They are proposing a dumpster enclosure on site. They have not talked anything about AC units or any kind of outside rooftop units or anything, but any kind of outdoor mechanical equipment, including transformers, will have to be fully screened, approved by the city, and be not visible. So that's something we'll have to work with the designers on as they go through permitting. They do have some preliminary landscaping, but a formal landscape plan would be reviewed by staff as part of the review of the building permit or prior. Any signage will need formal permits through the city staff, including the basis for that. There is not a photometric plan included, and there's some basic lighting, like down lighting, but any kind of lighting details will need to be provided with the photometric plan, especially if there's anything in the parking lots or lighting from the building into the parking lot. So right now, the resolution basically states that prior to any tenant or business moving in or operating the building, they will all need business registrations. And the future tenant space is going to be for small event space, not to exceed 50 people. Staff is recommending that cannot occur until all other users have left the site, meaning a completely empty site, to ensure we have enough parking. We talk about the garage and storage area not being able to be rented or leased. That should be tied to the registered or approved business on the site. And the typical things relating to screening and things like that. We do have the resolution stating that curb and gutter should be surrounding, the entire site and the parking areas. Other than that, staff is recommending approval, subject to those conditions, and maybe just discussion about that use.
Discussion.
Is there a reason for the curb and gutter that they don't want to have it?
There was a note in the application. I think that their engineers thought the drainage would work better or something like that. I would beg to differ with that because curb and gutter can direct it anywhere you want it to go. And if you needed to get out of the curb and gutter, you either use inlets or curb cuts. So that's not typically the best argument to make. Our engineers would agree with that also. We typically require for an aesthetic purpose, but also to kind of keep people where they should be. Yeah. Definitely make sure people aren't parking where they shouldn't be. Gives it a little bit cleaner finished look.
I've been more willing to waive that on existing properties that have had either a really bad driveway or don't have one at all, because I think having some new pavement is better than none. But on new ones, I think we should hold to that.
Yeah, I'm assuming they don't need a retention pond or detention pond for the small site it is.
The analysis that we received to this point talked about that the DNR requirements don't need stormwater, but MMSD's requirements are more strict, and I haven't had confirmation yet that MMSD has said no to stormwater. Considering the site was 100% vacant, even though this isn't a big project, usually when there's additional impervious on a vacant site, MMSD usually requires something. Yeah. Maybe it's green infrastructure, maybe it's a stormwater pond. That is something that would have to be looked at further. If they did need to go the route of having some kind of stormwater, there are kind of areas in the southwest and southeast corners that could maybe help facilitate that. But like I said, if it's not a lot, maybe some rain gardens or something, that will be up to MMSD's jurisdiction or engineering department to review.
Okay. Is there any further requirements for, usually you have some kind of commercial zone against residential, there's more of a buffer that's required, but that's not the case here.
Kind of depends on the user. I mean, the building itself looks nice, looks nice in some homes.
It does,
So
and it seems like a nice transition from like the commercial, kind of Janesville stuff to like the residential stuff.
yeah, I mean, they're kind of putting the back of the building to the resident, which is a good thing, right? So that none of the activity is facing them. But that's why we are recommending the landscaping on that southern edge of that back parking lot, just under those headlights,
Right. So like the
lead over there.
southeast corner.
Southeast corner of that back parking lot.
Okay. Yep. I think that, we have to be kind of consistent. Again, a new business, new commercial, office, we do require the curb and gutter. So I think that should be required. I do like the fencing, just it's going to eliminate any issues. I don't think there's going to be a lot of light coming from the south side of the building with the windows. There seems to become some clear stories. I don't think there's going to be any, neighbors complaining about the light coming from there, but I definitely do think like, especially with some construction traffic back there with trucks and stuff parking in the garage, I think that's something we should definitely require, so.
Are you the petitioner?
Yes.
Anything you want to add?
Can I speak to the grading? So, and that plan doesn't really show up, but that will be the southeast corner that's blank there. So we were going to leave that all sort of natural. That's existing like linden trees and other existing landscaping that we wanted to leave. And the flow, if you have the survey that shows that would go up right there. So if you basically the line from that peninsula on the north to the building, there's the line that shows the 25 or 6 feet there. All the water from that line goes to the east as a natural grade. So the bank is higher than us. So everything comes off the bank. We want it to flow across and go to the southeast. And then we want to bring all of the water from there to the west to go across the, and I guess, I thought we sent you an updated one, but we have like a butterfly garden that's going to be in the front.
I think the landscape plan might have showed that, yeah. And we weren't too concerned with the area in the front as far as landscaping goes.
So my engineer is telling me that without gutters, we're going to have like better flow of the water, especially because all that water that goes to the southeast goes across a lot of land and trees towards the city drainage, which is like a block away. But and regarding the MMSD, he said that he said they normally don't submit until this has been approved, but he thinks that it's possible that they might ask us to do like a rain garden or something in that southeast corner. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any comments on the intended use for the event space?
Is the intent, event space now, but eventually could it be an office expansion? Is that kind of the idea?
The way it was written, I think it could be either. I don't want to speak for the applicant, but I kind of thought it was one of those things where if they put out for lease and someone's interested, it sounds like they could make it be a business, which I think would be a better fit by far, as long as it's a low, not some really high content user. That's why we would review a business registration to make sure that before a user would sign on there, we would need to know. But it's kind of an either or is how they have it written and proposed.
But you're specifically talking about a separate business that would utilize that area as event.
Yeah, kind of the northerly most part of the building. So you'd enter the main doors and PEA is kind of on the right.
Yes.
This other space would be like on the left once you enter the front door.
And they would have to go through a approval process, regardless of who they are, they'd have to go through approval process.
It would at least be a staff approval of a business registration so that we could vet the use to make sure the code allows it and to make sure that whatever kind of use it is meets the parking requirements.
But if we're against it, we should nip that in the bud here.
Correct.
I just find it interesting. It's such a broad term, an event space. It leaves me with a huge scale of potentials, and it doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't at all. So I'm curious as to why it's there.
It's, so if it is event space, it will be run by PEA Properties LLC, which is us. So we own the property. We own the property. We also own PEA Builders. And we're thinking, bridal showers, baby showers, birthday parties, like small events,
So it'd be managed by you?
managed by us. Right, we would maintain ownership and run it.
Do you know if you're leaning towards that, or are you
We-
preferable to try to rent it out?
We are leaning towards that if you allow it. So,
So my concerns with the event space is the park. We've got other businesses throughout the community that we just don't have enough parking. One right across the street already.
Right, right.
And adding more into that area, I think we're packing a lot into that area, and this is a residential area, so guess where the extra parking is going to further go onto it.
Yeah, because sometimes the Fab House gets pretty packed and people park in the Associated Bank lot, I believe.
Well, not only that, they park up, I mean, I'm
and
guilty
down
of
the
it
roads.
myself. I've been there for events and end up parking on Kristen Drive.
Yeah.
Everything about this application I like, except that one use.
I agree.
I mean, I think they've done a wonderful job of finding the design of the building that fits.
I agree.
It's a great transition and everything. I just, parking is like our number, it's in my top 5 of things I get calls on.
Is there, I'll ask this question, maybe help refine the conversation. Is the question the use as a whole, or is it more so like if the capacity, which they're saying 50, if that's like 40 or something, is that something that's more palatable? And as long as we still have the condition to say the parking lot has to be, meaning all other employees and users have to be gone, meaning parking lot empty before those people start moving in?
I feel very comfortable if you said you're managing it, as compared to then going to the city and saying, we're gonna have a unique business that's gonna manage this on the side.
That's now.
Yeah.
He could sell the building next week and then,
True.
not that he's going to, but he could. And we don't look for, we look for long-term planning.
True.
Are you comfortable, because the resolution now says that, like I said, everyone's basically gotta be gone, because you're not allowed to leave trucks out overnight anyway. So is that something that, with capacity being a separate question, that you feel that could be doable and met?
that is our plan, right? That we will be, no one will be there, and then it'll be the event space.
Sure.
So.
Because when we look at parking for event spaces, the probably safer bet to go is 2 people to 1 stall. Like, for example, if someone wanted to convert a barn into a wedding barn, that's the requirement we use is, 2 people to 1 stall. In this case, if they were at 50, right, that's 25, they don't even have that many stalls. Right. If you go to 40 now, you're down to 20, they have that. And if everyone else will be gone, at least that's a safer number.
Or 46?
I'm sorry?
46.
Well, the problem with that is you have someone bringing stuff to set up. Do you have a staff member there assisting them? Most of these aren't just, hey, you're going to come in on your own. So, the guest count sometimes figures a few extras might be helping out.
And depending on the use, more than likely, it's 1 person per car. Someone's going to pick up grandma and Aunt Mary, but, everyone else is going to bring their own car to the shower.
That's exactly what I was gonna suggest is limiting it from, not 50, but maybe, a lesser number that
40 or something like that, yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Along the line, so I know, here we are.
Yeah.
Yes,
We
here are.
could say 40, and then is there something we could say in 6 months, after construction, after it's been in, evaluate what's going on? Make it a little bit more, have a inspection to see, monitor it a little bit better, so.
What we could do is we could implement, because we've done things similar before, a one-time, I'll say an annual review, but a one-time review a year out from when they open with a lower capacity, and that once that mark hits, if the owner would want to increase it and can show us based upon data and evidence and good track record that they would want to request it to go up, anyone has the right to make an amendment.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, that would be like, let's say 25. Let's just try 25 and see how it goes, and then see the data, and then see how, any complaints, stuff like that, and then see how it goes.
I mean, from a business standpoint, it makes sense. There's a demand for this type of size use. It's just where it is the issue.
I would recommend 25 probably as a starting point, and then see how it goes, and the applicant can reapply, show us some data and see if we can increase it, that they've been monitoring it well and doing things well, and maybe there's not the demand they think, or maybe there's, other circumstances, right? So,
25 sounds minuscule. I mean, I see a reduction worthy, but I think 50 is too much relative to the parking situation. But, give them an opportunity to be successful and not limited. I know I'm splitting hairs, maybe 30, but I like the original 40.
Alderman Bryce?
I would say 25 would be too less, because if you're planning like a baby shower and you got 30, you're not even going to go with that site. So it would give them some skewed numbers, like instead of maybe getting a few more parties that could give them better data to bring back, they're missing out on a few just because we cut it a few people short. I like 40. Just my opinion.
Jeremy, any input on this?
I'm ready to make a motion for 40. So I will make a motion for 40.
I'll second it.
So it's a motion to amend? Yeah.
Yes, a motion to amend.
Any further discussion on the motion to amend? All those in favor of limiting the event space to 40 for capacity, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so
As part of that, what we'll do is we'll kind of, like we talked about the idea, we'll talk about the 1 year that they, after 1 year of operation, they can come back with data, and
we can
if they
add
want to
that
request
into the
one, yeah.
motion before we're done. That's just an amendment so far.
Sure.
Curb and gutter? Where are we at?
I say yes,
Yes, like requiring it?
requiring it.
Require it?
I'm all about consistency. We've never wavered on that.
Yep. Yeah, we've never wavered on that. I agree.
And what else?
It's really the biggest thing.
All right, so how is it written right now? They require the curb and gutter, so we don't need anything?
Yeah,
for
the
that?
curb and gutter is required in there already, so that wouldn't change. Let me just pull the document here. I don't think we limit the capacity, but let me
the
double check.
fencing for the parking is there as well.
Yeah, we do talk about parking on that back edge of that screening on the back edge of the parking lot, and that could be fencing or it could be landscaping, whatever. If they choose to leave, if there's a bunch of natural landscaping that's there, then that could meet that, but that would have to be shown on a plan, because the landscape plan should show everything existing that's going to remain, as well as anything newly proposed, so that's one thing they'll have to modify. Let me just get the resolution here. All right, I don't think 50 is limited. It just makes a note that if they're going to go with the 50, what we could do is we could just suggest making any references, the whereas statements can stay the same because that's what they were requesting.
We already made the motion to limit it to 40, so that's
Yeah,
good.
so we'll just make that a be it further resolved that limits that, and I think that would be it then.
And then the check-in, we need some direction on that. When do you want? House,
The what?
the follow-up, we're gonna
Oh,
let them
yeah.
do 40. How soon do we want to follow up? 6 months, 9 months?
My suggestion would be is let whatever date you set, let the applicant come to us if they want more, rather than us chase them down, because if they want more, they're gonna come to us, and if they just say, hey, things are going good, then they don't have to, they can just keep going on their way with that lower number.
Why don't we go 9 months from the time they take occupancy?
That sounds good.
Does that work?
Yep, that sounds good.
If there gets to be a problem, we can always send them a letter and have them come in sooner.
Yep.
All right. So can someone make that motion to do a follow-up in 9 months, bring it back to the plan commission for review?
I'll make that motion to have them come back in 9 months.
9 months from the
Or
time
from
of
occupancy.
occupancy.
I'll second.
Oh,
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Any more further discussion on the motion as amended? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. PC 045, 2026, conceptual plan review for Willow Estates located at West 182, South 8450 Racine Avenue, tax key 2223-998007.
Motion What am I?
Motion to approve?
Do we have to make a motion
That's
as it's a
right.
concept?
Yeah, this is
Motion,
a concept, yeah.
It's a concept, so we don't need a motion.
no, we're not doing anything besides.
There's
just
nothing on the
talking.
floor. Yep.
All right, so never mind, I don't even need a motion, we're just talking about it tonight.
So to kind of remind the Plan Commission and the audience, an optional step that any applicant can take if they want, whether it's for a rezoning, whether it's for a land use amendment, whether it's for a building site and operation plan approval, anything that the Plan Commission oversees, any applicant can choose to come for a conceptual discussion. What it's meant to do is just really solicit feedback. So in the packet is the applicant's submittal. Staff kind of did a write-up of our overview of it, kind of just talking about the facts of the case and what they're proposing. This is really a chance for the Plan Commission to provide the applicant any feedback. From this meeting, the Plan Commission and their feedback then will provide hopefully the applicant some direction, whatever that may be. And then if the applicant would so choose, they could end up coming forward down the road for a formal separate submittal, which the next step would likely be a rezoning and land use amendment. But there's no voting tonight. There's no yes or no. I mean, you guys can provide any feedback you want to the Plan Commission. It's really, they're here, they paid to be here to get feedback from you guys. So the more you can provide them, whatever direction that is, good, bad, neutral, that's what they're here for. So kind of overview of this project. Willow Glen Apartments is an apartment complex, an older apartment complex located south on Racine Avenue, just a block or so south of City Hall. The existing apartment complex contains 32 apartment units. They're two-story buildings, 4 of them, 8 units in each, and those have been there for quite some time. There was an approval back in 2011 by a former property owner. They came forward, they went through a rezoning process and a building site and operation plan approval process from the Plan Commission and Council at that time to change the zoning from the underlying zoning, to a planned development district. That planned development district was based under the base zoning of RM1, which is a multifamily district partially, and RM2, which is a multifamily district. That approval at that time was granted and technically still stands today for 44 additional apartment units, bringing that total site to a total of 76 units. That plan had 11 4-unit, 2-story buildings at that time. Now, those owners have since sold the site. I think they actually might have been a couple owners ago now. But that approval, as far as the number of units and the rezoning, stays there. That doesn't go away. The site layout and the BSO part of the approval and architecture, that would need reapprovals if anyone was ever going to pick up that project and keep going forward. Now, the new owners are proposing, instead of 44 additional, they're now asking for 76 additional units. That would be broken down into the following unit types. There'd be 10 2-story townhomes, each containing 40 units, 4 units each, so it's a total of 40 units there. There'd be 2 bedrooms in each unit and 2 3-bedrooms in each of those units. And then they're proposing 3 larger buildings, and I say larger in unit count. That would be 12 units each, totaling 36 total units. So, like I said, this here is meant to be a discussion, just to solicit commentary from the Plan Commission to see what they can get for feedback. As far as the land use plan goes, the 2035 comp plan identifies currently about 4.08 acres of the property as high density residential, which basically means anything that's over 3 units per acre, and about 13.26 acres as medium density residential. The proposed concept was to amend that plan so that there'd be 10.28 acres of high density residential and 7.06 acres of medium density residential land use. So that would increase the amount of high density on the property. As far as the zoning goes, because zoning and land use need to be relatable, but they are different. They have different requirements and different purposes. The zoning right now is a planned development district, partially based on the RM1 zoning, partially based on that RM2 that follows the same boundaries as the current land use. What the request is to change the amount to mirror what they requested with the land use change, to have the zoning change also. So the RM1 district can basically allow anywhere from 2 units in one building up to 16 units in a building, and each of those needs 5,000 square feet of land area per unit. The RM2 district is intended for multifamily anywhere between 2 units and 8 units in a single dwelling, and that needs 10,000 square feet of land per unit. The proposed zoning boundary and land use boundaries in this concept do mirror each other, which is something that we typically look to see if there is going to be a change. So they are increasing the RM1 area to 10.28 acres, and the RM2 will contain about 7.06 acres. This land currently is serviced by a municipal sewer and by public sanitary sewer, and sewer would have to be extended at the developer's expense if this development were to eventually go through. As far as water goes, I believe the existing apartments are served by a private well. As part of a new proposal, staff would be recommending the existing buildings connect to public water, as well as anything new development-wise would definitely have to be on the municipal water system, once again, at the developer's expense. In the packet that was included, you'll see not only, like I said, the applicant's submittal, but there are some things in the narrative kind of talking about the unit breakdowns, talking about square footages. So they are proposing apartments, like I said here. When you look at some of the items, they're noting that the 3 bedrooms in the smaller building, they're approximating about 1,800 square foot in size with approximate rent of just hair under $3,000 a month. The 2-bedroom units in the townhomes are about 1,100 square feet in size and anticipate a rent of about just about $2,100 a month. And the 2-bedroom, 2-bath in the larger buildings, totaling the 36 total units, would be about 1,200 square feet each with about $2,400 a month rent. The concept, like I said, improves this land use amendment and comp plan amendment, and those numbers I talked about are listed in the packet, talking about kind of how many units in the end. They're proposing 88 units under high density, 20 units under the medium density, which gives them a total of 108 units. 32 exist today. As far as the design of the building goes, there are renderings and some architecture plans included in their concept submittal. The buildings themselves are kind of at a residential scale. These buildings proposed have the same height restrictions applied to them as any other single-family district in the city. So they'd be no taller than any other single-family homes would be allowed to be when you look at the vertical height of the structures. Like I said, you can look at the images to see kind of where the architecture looks like, but it's definitely a kind of contemporary type of design with current apartments. As far as the buildings go, like I said, they are all 2 stories. They do follow the same single-family height requirements. They will be subject to meeting all the setbacks and offsets identified in the zoning ordinance. One of the things the general design guide talks about that was mentioned in some past projects, which would apply here if the plan commission so wished, was 4-sided architecture and 50% masonry. That would obviously be analyzed further if this project would go forward. Access to this site is currently gained and proposed to stay that way off of a driveway off of Racine Avenue. Racine Avenue is a county highway, so the city does not have any control or jurisdiction on like traffic impact analysis or anything. Because there would be increased users here if this would go forward, the applicant would need to eventually reach out to the county to see if any kind of analysis or improvements would be needed on Racine Avenue. That is the only proposed access point. There is a road stub, and let me rephrase that. There is an unimproved right-of-way from the neighborhood to the east of here that was always planned for a future road extension if there would ever be single-family development. So this isn't single-family development, and as such, staff would not recommend approval of any kind of connection there. As part of the past proposal for this site, and what staff would recommend going forward would be if this project would go forward, that right-of-way be vacated if it does go forward for multifamily. So that would eliminate any possible future connections. One thing we do know would probably be needed would be a water main easement over that area though, because the city's water utility does look for water utility loops, and that would be one area to loop a water system as it provides safer and better water systems. They do show private roads through the entire development, so there'd be no city roads in this development, and there would be a cul-de-sac at the end of the development for maneuverability of their own users or school buses or whoever they hire privately to be in their site. But it would not be city roads, not maintained by the city. So basically that's the submittal that's in front of you. So the Planning Commission should discuss this, provide any feedback that they can. If the applicant were to choose to kind of take this to the next step, the absolute soonest we could have the next meeting, which would be a land use amendment and such, the soonest would be end of July. So July 28th would be the absolute soonest, and that's if the applicant were to submit kind of by the end of this month. They could obviously maybe be further out than that. It's really up to them.
And typically, we don't have a July meeting, so.
Yeah. This would be a public hearing in front of council at the end of July.
Yes. Jeremy?
I guess I'll just jump into so did you note that it's a planned development or that it would be a rezoned?
So there's a planned development now. They would be, if they would go forward, they would be further amending that planned development zoning and the land use boundaries to reflect their new proposal. So there is a PD, a planned development already today, that exists. They're asking to keep it but change it, so an amendment, but it's treated the same as a rezoning.
Sure, okay. I guess the density is probably the biggest question. How does this compare to other apartment developments in Muskego?
There's a wide range of densities on apartment developments in Muskego. There are some that are more dense, there's some that are less dense. It's not an outlier of any sort. Yeah. When you do look at the land uses, kind of in this general area, which I think one of the applicant's images kind of shows the colorful map, and that's the land use map. There are some other land uses that are high density in this area. Not every properties to the east are definitely not. The few houses to the west of this are not, but there are some general properties across Racine Avenue and then going south like down to Woods where the assisted living is, as well as going north where there's some assisted living and apartments. So there is some high density in this area. There's some high density in this lot. The question is, does that get changed or not?
Alderman Bryce.
So this is my district. So I've had lots of phone calls, emails, discussions with lots of residents who have reached out. The developers also had a meeting at the library. So it's created a lot of discussion amongst people who kind of live all around, like people who live to the east, people who are recently building to the south, and a few people kind of like along, not Pioneer, what is that road?
Probably Racine.
Clearbrook.
Racine?
On the west side. The
No,
ones in
not
front.
Racine, like when you go around the corner.
Pioneer.
Pioneer?
Pioneer.
Okay.
Pioneer. There you go. Thanks. I was like, I already forgot the name of the road. And some of the big concerns that came up from the residents that are either currently built, have already built, been living in the subdivision in Clearbrook, or other just residents right around kind of that area is, the concern for the amount of buffer, like trees, quality trees that could be built around. Kind of like 100 feet was kind of a good idea of some nice full hardy green trees. And on the colored map, it doesn't show right now, kind of more full area. And I'm not sure that the developers knew that at the time when they made this map, there was actually a house going in right back in that area. And it's not only to provide the residents in the single family homes privacy, but also the tenants who will be in the apartments some privacy. So that was one concern, is they just wanted to make sure there was some nice greenage around to provide a buffer so no one is looking in at anybody. Also another concern was zoning. Obviously what's already there is high density, what's high density will just stay high density, but not making a change to put more high density in that area. A concern would be just to keep it all medium density and ask that the developers could fit their plan into what is already zoned there. And someone also brought up how we did just approve the 2035 city
Comp plan.
comp plan. Yes, thank you. I was getting there. It works all day. Words are hard sometimes. We all took a look at that, and we, as alder people, and we respected all the time that got put into that. Why would we want to change it? So that was a big concern. Another concern was the right-of-way, but it seems that that's maybe gone away since no one is really, the city's not asking for the right-of-way to go in to connect to Clearbrook. And then another concern was just with all the water and possibly flooding to the other areas right around, so.
So a couple of those issues, the right of ways,
Yeah.
more than likely going to make two properties owners' yards bigger. There will be, I can just say it, there will be an easement going through there for the water main. So it's not like they can build on part of it, but it will be adding to the yard. Stormwater development actually improves stormwater in areas because it's unmanaged now for the most part, although this one might be somewhat semi-managed because it's already developed. but our stormwater and MMSD stormwater requirements are rather stringent. So that, while I understand it being a concern, that is also one of our concerns, and we make sure that it's taken care of at the time. It looks like, I'm looking at the plan, looks like they do have some landscaping buffer zone that they're intending on putting on. I think that covered most of it. Does the petitioner have any addressings to any of that?
Hi there. Thank you for having us. I'm Noah Jacobson, managing partner with Bruce City Capital. This is my business partner, Jonathan Schuman. In terms of just responding to any of those comments, we tried to create, we have a 100-foot buffer right now between that kind of eastern side and where our buildings are. We'll have the trees in between. Talked about vacating that right away. Tried to address that. We think the site's probably a good fit for something like this, just because we have, Racine Ave there should be equipped to handle this kind of traffic. We can discuss that with the county. There's already, multifamily on the site, so we thought maybe this would be a good location for some additional multifamily. One of the big, inspirations for us seeing this site was kind of seeing a need for housing in Muskego. We saw it in the cost of the home prices, the cost of the rents going up, the lack of vacancy in the market. So we thought this would be a project that could help address some of those housing needs in Muskego. We think something like this would attract probably two kinds of tenants. We're looking at kind of an aging population in a lot of markets that is starting to look to downsize, sell their home, but they want to stay in the place where they've lived for years. They want to stay within the market. This would provide an opportunity for them to downsize out of their homes, move into a really quality product. This is as luxury a product as it would get, premium, high end, whatever you want to call it. And the beauty for them moving into something like this is that because it's a rental, we're taking care of everything. The snow, the lawn, the maintenance inside the buildings, all of that's taken care of by us. The other demographic we think would be a good fit for this, and this is kind of supported by our housing analysis from Tracy Cross, would be young families who are looking to get into Muskego, get into this great school district. We see it so we build, buy, and operate multifamily housing in other suburban markets around southeast Wisconsin. One of the things we see frequently is young families moving into these rentals first to get their kids into the school system, and that gives them time to look for the house that's right for them. The housing market is crazy. It's tough for them to get a house. It takes time. So we think this would be that kind of development too, where young families can move in, get their kids into the schools, and that would give them time then to start looking for a house if they choose to. So I guess specifically for Muskego, this development would be addressing a need for high-end rentals, which hasn't been really addressed in Muskego in some time. I know over the last 10 years, only 3 apartment projects have been approved in Muskego. And those apartment projects, including the Will Rose, both phases, the View at Town Center, have just a 1.6% vacancy rate right now. So we know there's demand for this kind of housing, and would love to be able to provide it. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Hi, Keith Barnes with KCB Architects. If I could just talk to the site plan, Aaron, would you mind scrolling up a few pages? And I want to mention, we went through great efforts in laying out the site plan and designing the buildings to make a nice transition from the higher density residential apartments that are the multifamily apartments that are there to the single family neighborhood, the clear book. If we go up one more page, the Clearbrook neighborhood to the east, in that all these townhomes are situated along the eastern side of the site, and there is a 100-foot buffer to the property line at the east. And it's going to be lined with trees. And then if you go down to the next page, some of the rear yards, just to give you a sense of scale, it's hard to understand like what is 100 feet. The rear yards of some of the single-family homes that back up to the property line range between 78 feet and 100 feet. So it's about kind of consistent with the type of backyard that a lot of these single-family homes have. And there is one rendering that captures that. Aaron, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down a few images, it's about 6 pages down. And that one right there, this would essentially be the view from the single-family neighborhood. Kind of shows you how much green buffer space there is between the single-family residential neighborhood and the townhouse development. But we really designed these to integrate well into the single-family neighborhood that's backing up to that area, and they almost look and feel like homes, and they're intended to be homes for families and retirees. And yeah, thank you again for your time. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback.
So we have two architects up here that I'm sure are chomping at the bit to actually give them feedback on the aesthetics part. So either one of you want to jump into that?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm really struggling with this kind of site plan is it's just so orthogonal, right? It's very dense, right? And the buildings are very close together, like almost, you might want to check your building codes because they're 10 feet apart, imaginary line between the two buildings. You only have 5 feet. You're very limited on what kind of openings you may actually have to fire rate each side of those buildings where they're right next to each other. So that's very concerning. The other thing is, there's, and I know this is a county thing that they have to deal with, but the traffic coming out of this is going to be, people going to work, people coming home from work, maybe pretty busy. Racine's pretty busy already. How are we dealing with that? And I know that's a county maybe issue, but couple of things, typically I see like a Class A apartment building like this having 9-foot ceilings. These are kind of 8-foot floor to floor heights. Is there kind of a reason you guys had that? Are you trying to keep it low, like a more residential feel? Is there, again, with this size development, I also typically see some kind of clubhouse function. What are the amenities of the site? Is there a pool? Is there a club room? Is there a gym? That would help. I just think like so packed and so dense. It's just, could we try to meander the site a little bit and kind of have more curved linear, kind of use more of the area next to the stormwater pond to kind of expand that site a little bit to not make it so dense. I think that's a concern I have. It just looks like, kind of row housing, I guess I'd say, rather than Muskego is very, you look at a lot of the suburbs and you look at a lot of the, we have a lot of curvilinear plans. We have a lot of meandering paths. I think that's kind of nice for, especially when you have so many buildings like this that there's such a packed area. So I would encourage the design to kind of, follow the contour of the land a little bit, especially on the north side where could we do something along that retention pond to give a little bit relief from the angles, I guess, the 90-degree angles that we're kind of having here. Can we expand out a little bit, give a little bit of room between these to kind of get out to some of these, the 100-foot buffer you had around along the south and the east side of the site, to kind of connect the land a little bit more with that stuff. That's what I would say. It just seems very dense. So, as far as the architecture, the architecture is very modern. It's nice. I think the proximity to each other, the buildings is a huge concern for me. So, and how tightly they're packed in there. So.
Jeremy?
Forgive me for not knowing this. I should, but we didn't talk about the property to the south and what is that zoned currently?
Let me pull up my map here. Hold on one second.
So there's multiple properties.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah,
kinda-
so directly behind the proposed large or multifamily development,
Yeah.
where we
just
don't have as large a buffer
Give
specifically.
me 1 second here.
Like you think to the north? South?
Yeah, south of our development,
Yeah.
right? So,
Okay, so right now, so south, kind of, we'll call it southwest of the site, like mostly by the driveway and more so south of the existing apartments. Right now is a church, so it's zoned institutional and land use is institutional. Kind of the next big chunk, maybe the next third or a little bit more of this site, is zoned as a planned development, which is a multifamily planned development for the senior living, the Regency. They own, they're kind of clustered their density on their west end of the site. So the area is immediately east of them, which it's a wooded area that abuts the southern edge of this site, is a planned development for multifamily. And then the land use plan shows it as partially conservation because of the tree preservation that's there. And then if you go all the way against the southern lot line on the last eastern portion, there's a newer home that was recently, I think it's under construction or recently being finished, that stems off of Woods Road. So there's a residence there. So those are all the users, and that's a single family zoning on that residence then.
okay, thank you for that. Okay, so I guess I agree on the density comments where the buildings are very tight together. It stands out. I think architecturally, the masonry requirement at 50% is very consistent in our community. You're gonna find that really hasn't been wavered from. So I do like a compliment to what you've done along the east side, where you've brought the scale of the development down, where you're, where you have the neighbors directly behind. I do think that that's a nice touch. Putting a larger scale development more along that area that's going to be basically preservation. I would like to see, and I guess I'd strongly support this. I actually would kind of fight you a little bit on it. There's not enough buffer between that house that Adam just mentioned and their property there. And I realize it's one house, but yes, right in that area there, I think there needs to be more buffer between that neighboring property and your parcel, your development. Beyond that, I suspect that the county probably, having done a lot of development now in the county, they're pretty tough on the drive access, so it might be making you make some improvements there. The last thing I'd say is I think the architecture is nice. I like that. I think it's creative. It's not quite welcoming when you drive into the community, and that just might be something that you want to consider. This is not something that I'm like, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but right now your drive entrance into your community is not as welcoming as it could be. So maybe as you work on the site layout, that evolves. So.
Any feedback from down here?
Totally agree about the density of the buildings over the available property size. It looks like you made an effort to compress everything into one corner. And personally, I would say I'd be questioning if I could turn around in there. And it looks like there's land to be used. My advice would be use it. It would be more, let's say it'd be more inviting from the residents' standpoint, and may be able to move those buffers, whether it be on the south side or even additionally on the east side, and extend those even further than they are now.
Alderman Bryce, anything more to add?
Oh, I forgot, I left my microphone on. I like aesthetically appealing. I do like that look. I like that modern look. So I think that looks really nice. I like the 100-foot in the back. I think the 100-foot on the south side would be nice too, because there's that house that I talked about. I think, maybe if you can use more of the land space to spread it out, like, they had all said, that could also make it look very nice. I know we do need some apartments in Muskego. We don't really have any. There's been people looking and they can't be, they haven't been able to find them. So they either go to a different community or make a purchase of a house while they build their house, and then they're gonna sell that house they had to build when it would have been easier for their family just to, maybe do a one-term lease or 1-year lease. Enrollment in the schools is down, so it'd be nice to have some more, housing options where maybe some people could enroll their kids in our school district because it is a good district. That's all I got, I think, right now.
I don't have much more to add on this. I mean, just from the outside of the community, I know your argument of we need more housing. Everyone agrees with you except people that live here. So, and it's an argument I hear, statewide, we're probably one of the few communities that aren't out there seeking more housing. I'm not saying I'm against it by any means, but there's other communities that are throwing the kitchen sink at trying to get something like this. And this, I think from an aesthetic, it looks good. For those listening, this is, they have concerns. These are not going to be, problem tenants for more than likely because of the price range that they're coming in. So you're going to be talking families with, 6-figure incomes easily that are going to be need to afford to live here. So, it's sometimes apartments get a bad rap. I don't see that happening with this. Would agree with if we can, use the property that's there, spread it out, try to not make it look so on top of each other, but. For the reality standpoint is they're asking for what, 2 more buildings? 3 more? They're approved for 11 already.
Well, it's, unit count is what matters. So 44 units has been granted already. They want 76. So 44 can be added.
Sure. But I think they already had approval for 11 also, didn't they?
It was 32 existing, 44 additional, and that's all they have to this date.
Okay, all right. But yeah, if we could spread it out quite a bit.
So one question I might ask, if anyone up here could clarify for the applicant, because it's something I wouldn't know how I would process it. When we say like dense and spreading out, is it physicality of the buildings? Is that what you're talking about? The idea of just the closeness makes them dense, or unit count makes them dense?
That's kind of what I'm looking. That's specifically what I'm talking about.
I would say, if you can make it work with the same amount of buildings, but meander the site a little bit more, make it a little bit more appealing instead of so orthogonal, that could work. Or maybe you have to take 2 buildings out and you 2 less buildings, but you can kind of spread it out and make it more park-like, more, again, kind of give us some room between these buildings. It's so, these buildings are so close, they almost read as one big building, which is kind of concerning in this kind of area where you have a lot of single-family houses. That's my biggest thing. So if there's a way to kind of meander them around, spread them around, I think with this price point, have you looked at a clubhouse as well, or some kind of freestanding structure with, either a pool or other amenities by the that's something that's always appealing, so.
I can comment on that. I just, from what we're seeing in the market, would be confident we could rent them out without needing that kind of amenity package. And by omitting the pools and the clubhouses and the gyms, we're able to bring the overall cost down, because that's what we're fighting on something like this, is just the cost of bringing in the roads, the utilities coming in off Racine Avenue. The cost to develop the land is high, so we're trying to not have the pools and the clubhouses and that kind of stuff. And we're confident there would still be demand for this kind of housing, so that's why.
Is there any kind of nearby, I don't think there's any nearby trails to connect to that would kind of connect that site to the rest of the community aside from going out to Racine?
Well, through the right of way that they don't want.
Yeah.
Alderman Bryce.
And like I said, this is, part of District 4. And I've had lots of phone calls and emails and conversations with people in the Clearbrook subdivision. And we've kind of talked about like the process of all this together. But they would like to delegate one person to just kind of come up, give a couple minutes, so their opinion and idea can just be documented from the beginning. They understand that this is not a normal process, but this would be an exception. Would everyone be okay with that?
So you're asking if we'd be okay if we called someone up from the community?
Correct, one person.
Sure, come on up. I'm okay with it personally.
Yep. All right. Yes. Try to keep it so I don't have to put a stopwatch on you, though.
Yeah, no, and I'll thank you all, and I apologize, some of this, we tried to write up, keep it succinct, but it was before these comments, so if there's any redundancy, it was just trying to be prepared and to get in and out. So I'm Troy Van Yet, live at S84 W17749 Orchard Court, which is in Country Brook Estate. It's Country Brook. Clear Brook is the street that goes through it. It's Country Brook Estates. Thank you, Mayor Petfalski, Alderman Bryce, and the members of the Plan Commission. Thank you for having this unique opportunity to speak. We appreciate it. As I said, I'm Troy. I'm speaking on behalf of many of the concerned residents of Country Brook Estates regarding, PC 45 2026, regarding Willow Estates, and I live in there. Our message to this layout and design is no, but it's not to no development. It's about the layout, a lot of the comments, that have been made here. Muskego has increased housing units, through a lot of great opportunities here. We're asking for a continued responsible site design, neighborhood compatibility, and enforceable conditions. Our residents have really three main priorities are out there. First, the no connection to Country Brook Estates, already established through your comments and through the development in there. Second, the land use and zoning should remain compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, without an increase of those high density. Once again, a lot of density comments for both the zoning and the land use, particularly near established conservation area, wetlands, residential lots in our subdivision. Third, using precedents of the previous proposal from 2011, that one had a 425-foot natural buffer and conservation area that was, seen as part of that one. Having any buffer remain fully on the developmental property with additional natural vegetation, trees, stormwater supporting plants to keep that blend going through there, to preserve the natural environment and future growth from encroaching across different areas. Compared to that, the precedence of the previous approval from the commission back then, this one represents 42% increase in total units. And in those construction units just over, that's a 73% increase, with a 152% increase in that high density acreage, the 6 acres that would need to be reclassified. The comprehensive plan supports, a lot of growth. We've had a lot of growth. Muskego's housing stock has outpaced population growth, 6% population growth compared to 4% housing in that 10-year period. Additionally, it shows projected housing units to exceed projected household income, so that trend seems to be continuing. Other aspects of the comprehensive public in the comp plan, the public input, over 90% supported protecting the residential suburban character. Over 70% opposed higher density development. 64% are not okay with apartments. When asked to prioritize some of the aspects of their neighborhood, quiet neighborhoods was a score of 4.66 out of 5. Parks and open spaces scored 4.37 out of 5, that space. Many concerns are not unusual. Density, stormwater runoff, wetlands, wooded areas, traffic, police access, construction traffic, noise, light, dust, and long-term maintenance. Brood City's, own public engagement list, those concerns, particularly about Clear Brook Drive access and having that vacated. Recent local reporting also shows, Muskego residents raised concerns about, flooding impacts, basement damage, dust, noise, truck. With respect to that right-of-way, not only with respect to just road, but also any EMS access, to have a complete vacation of any for all purposes when that time comes up, put in there to have any possible vehicular access to be accessed, so that development can be serviced fully from Racine and not going through Clearbrook. And we request that any of those representations be binding conditions as opposed to, just meeting notes. We'd like to ask Bruce City to, revisit the site layout before any of these future approvals are granted. There has been mentioned by, Bruce City and others that there are alternatives. There's a lot of different ways to design things, recommended some there, but really to see some of those designs sooner rather than later, to get everything done. No one wants to have, wasted time or have it out there, but to have that as part of the public process sooner rather than later, before any rezoning, land use amendment, building site, or operational approval, or other project approval moves forward. Please also study whether the buildings on the east side or north could be shifted around. Once again, these were written before all your comments that were made. So in line there. The goal is to keep Willow Estates self-contained, served from Racine Ave, and compatible with the surrounding community and lots, separated from Country Brook Estates by a permanent 425-foot buffer, as that previous precedence being the example back then, and trying to keep zoning and land use consistent with the very recently approved 2035 comprehensive plan that has many extensive hours put into that. So thank you very much for your time and for listening to the concerns of our neighborhood. At this time, we appreciate all you do and your service to the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I object to the fact that you're only allowing one person to speak. There's information that no one in this room knows, perhaps other than me, that is very pertinent to this proposal.
That may be, but our options at this point were 1 or 0. So we took 1. This is just feedback right now. This has there'll be, if there's rezoning, there's public hearings, there's everything else. So it's not like the public's cut out of this process by any means. We're just trying to get some work done today without creating a public hearing that will be coming in the future if this ends up going forward. So no one's being cut out of the process.
If there's items that are pertinent that you think need to be passed on,
There's plenty of
they can come to staff. We're in the building 5 days a week, so come visit us, have a conversation.
No, I appreciate that developers coming forward and taking feedback at this point, because not every developer does this. We a lot of times we're just given a plan to react to, and he's trying to build the plan with feedback, and I think I commend him for that.
Yeah, I'd like to just add to that, the other apartment developments that we've had in this community haven't gone where they come in ahead of time. And the room is full like this, and people are a lot, they're here with the pitchforks, right? And it's understandable. And so here we are tonight, and we're just talking conceptually with no action being taken. That's the right way to do it. And it sounds like they've also had neighborhood meetings. That doesn't always happen either. So those are great steps. I would just, one other thing to add, if we're gonna have apartments in this community, which this was already approved once for apartments on this area, I think loud and clear, we want something that's a little more upscale. We want something that kind of fits the community. And so that's a message that I just wanted to kind of say one more time. So thanks.
Any other feedback? Any other questions for us before you guys go back to your drafting boards?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Miscellaneous business, there is none. A motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 8:19.